so probably best for you to record. All right, we'll go ahead and start with some introductions here. I'm Lindsay Deal. I'm with Global Location Strategies. So we've been running this site readiness program for a couple years now. We've done 2 rounds in the past, and if you've been on this webinar in the past or have participated in the program in the past, you probably have seen me and Shelby as part of the program. So we've been in the 2 previous rounds, and then this year we also have Nico on our team supporting the project as well. So you'll see his name and face around if you're participating in this year's program. But yeah, I've been with GLS for, I guess, coming up on 5 years now, which is crazy to say, but 5 years now, and have been, again, doing this project for a couple years now. Shelby and Nico, I'll let you guys do a quick introduction before I go ahead and introduce GLS. So start with Shelby, then go to Nico.
Sure, happy to. Hey, everyone. It's great to see a lot of familiar names and faces. We're excited to kick off round 2 of this year's site readiness program. As Lindsay mentioned, we will hopefully be some familiar faces for you all, but hopefully there will also be some new people that haven't had the chance to work with GLS up until this point. So excited to meet some new people as well. Lindsay will do a more kind of deeper dive into GLS and the program itself. But as Lindsay mentioned, my name's Shelby Zeracore. I am a senior consultant at GLS. I've been here a few years now and have been with this program from the beginning. And then I'll pass it to Nico, who is a newer team member to the program, but has been with GLS now for at least over a year, right, Nico? But he'll be joining Lindsay and I as we evaluate this year's round of sites. Nico?
Thanks, Shelby. It's almost a year now. It'll be a year in April, but
I was aging you a bit. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Gives me more credibility. Yeah, my name's Nico Peterson. I'm a business analyst with GLS. I've been here about 10 months, and this is my first year working on the project, and I'm excited to get the ball rolling on this. Thank you.
All right. I will go ahead and share my screen. It's loading, I promise. There we go. All right, so then a little bit about GLS for some background on why we're doing this program, and then I'll go into more of the scope of work for this program specifically. So GLS, or Global Location Strategies, has been around for 60 years now. We spun out of Fluor, which is an engineering firm, and we're headquartered here in Greenville, South Carolina. So me and Nico both sit here in Greenville, South Carolina, and then we also have several remote employees. So Shelby, for example, is out in Alabama. But yeah, we spun out of Fluor, so have 60 years of experience, and our bread and butter is really site selection, specifically heavy industrial site selection. And I'll go into a few of those industries here in a second, but a lot of our work that we do is on the economic development consulting side as well. So taking that site selection expertise and catering to some different economic development organizations, whether it be states, communities, or even rail partners and things like that, and kind of consulting on their specific needs, in this case, site readiness programs. So again, most of our work is in site selection with those heavier industries, especially mission critical facilities lately. So here is just a list of some of the sectors that we touch. There is a lot more, but as you can see, really a lot of those mission critical facilities in sectors ranging from things like life sciences all the way to metal refining and chemical processing, especially in recent years. And the goal of our site selection work, and when we do our work, is to balance the quality of a site with the cost of the location, as well as limiting the risk. So our goal when we're advising clients is really to have a good balance of those. We like to say there's no perfect site in the US right now anywhere. So um, we are very data heavy, very tech forward, and we use models to kind of help balance this quality, cost, and risk in order to get the most ideal site as possible for a client, although we know that there's no perfect site. So when we're doing these economic development efforts, and I will get into more of the specific scope of work in a little bit, but when we're doing these economic development efforts, we're doing the same exact thing with your site, and telling you your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, everything as it relates from the quality, cost, and risk aspect. So this is all to say we really leverage that site selection expertise when making these reports, and you'll see that consistency through your deliverable. So just to put it, I really like this slide because I feel like it helps put it in perspective for me. But in our models and the data that we will collect from you all on your locations, we're looking at a ton of different factors. So site data, utilities, logistics, those are three big ones, and then all the way down to quality of life and talent. But then when you look inside those bubbles, we get into even more narrowed down categories. So just taking that site one for an example, we'll look at developability. So that's things like wetlands, floodplain, things like that. And then if you look at utilities, just as an example, we'll look at all those different utilities. So electric, water, wastewater, natural gas, things like that. But then from a data level, to collect some data points, we're going to be asking very specific questions using those same two categories as examples. For developability, we'll be asking about floodplains, wetlands, easements, everything that could impact the site there. And then from an electric standpoint, again, just as an example, I like using those two categories as an example. We'll be looking at not only the electric rates and what infrastructure is there, but also what capacity is on the line, what is realistic to serve in the next few years, and things like that. So all the same things we would be looking at for a site selection project. And when you fill out the RFI, which we'll get into here in a little bit, you'll notice that this is a common theme. It's all stuff that would be asked in a corporate project. All right, so getting into more of the program overview, and we will have time for questions at the end of this PowerPoint. So I anticipate this is where a lot of the questions will come up, but if you have any questions, feel free to chime in immediately too. I'm perfectly okay with that. So about this program, site readiness is not an A to B journey. There's a lot that goes into it. So on this slide, we show kind of the steps to get there. So defining your product inventory and then determining your competitive strengths. So again, this is all like you're starting with land, and then we're kind of addressing your strengths and weaknesses, and then optimizing your assets and forming that into a story. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? If you're aware of both of those, you're able to tell a story and eventually achieve success through infrastructure improvements and prioritizing improvements and things like that. So it really is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And the goal of this program is to get you there. So why do we do site readiness? Sometimes I know the RFIs and the programs can seem like they take up a lot of time, but they're really important. And the reason why they're so popular across the US right now is because, as the survey from the site selector Site Selectors Guild proves, there really is a lack of ready to develop sites in the US. So a lot of our site selection projects are either pausing or getting delayed due to a lack of sites. So we're seeing an effort across the country right now in a lot of different states, a lot of different communities to build up their site readiness programs. So getting those sites ready and having a proactive response to this issue that shows on this slide. So through that, we'll do the analysis and then make recommendations for readiness. But we're seeing this really kick off worldwide and nationwide, and we're involved in a lot of those programs here. So all of that is to say site readiness is important because we need sites. We don't just need dirt. There's a lot of dirt and not a lot of sites right now. So trying to get ahead of it. And then again, to summarize, the goal overall is to advance New Mexico sites towards investment readiness. So leveraging our site selection methodology, prioritizing community training opportunities. So through this program, you're helping us get information, but you're also getting the experience of a corporate project. Since we run our projects like a site selection corporate project, you're getting all of that experience through filling out the RFI, site visits, and everything else. And then define a path towards readiness. So through our recommendations, you'll see where your site currently stands and then what our recommendations are in a prioritized list to make your site more ready and more likely to be successful in a corporate project. So this side is lengthy. I'm not going to go too into it, but just to summarize our scope of work and hopefully paint that picture for you better. Hopefully this order of activities helps make the overall goal make sense. But in phase one, we've already done this. We touch base with New Mexico and align on what the goals of the program are, as we stated in this slide. What industries are they targeting, things like that, so that we can make our models and make it more specific to the goals that the state is trying to achieve, as well as overall put our input into what we're seeing around the country right now. And then right now we're in phase two. So you'll see that first activity on phase two is this webinar. And then immediately following this webinar, we'll go ahead and send out the RFI and really start that data collection. So for data collection, we do that RFI first. And then up here in March, we will do in-person site visits. That will be really short to see the site, get eyes on the site, which is super helpful for us to see what those answers were in the RFI and then see them in person. So we try to make those pretty quick, but really helpful for us to see them in person and also meet with you all. And then virtual site visits will be a little bit longer and after the field site visits. And those will go into a little bit more depth. And a lot of that will be one, confirming the RFI information, and then two, getting answers to any unknowns that were not identified through the RFI process. And then phase three, the work comes off of you all. So phase two is when you guys are the most involved. And then phase three, we'll step away. We'll do all of our work behind the scenes and do all those analyses that I've been talking about in this PowerPoint. And then we'll meet with New Mexico and send individual reports to you all that are involved in the program. And I will get more into what that deliverable would look like for you all to see what you get out of it. Again, already went through this, but really just to go over those key activities on the bottom under key dates. We're in the webinar right now. Later tonight, we will send out the RFI so that you guys can get started on it as early as tomorrow. And I will send everyone who's invited to the RFI an email. So if you think the RFI should have gone to someone else or anything like that, just respond to my email. We'll get it sorted out. But you guys will get a Lasso invite, which is the software that we distribute RFIs on. And I will send you an email to let you know that you've been invited so that there's no confusion there. And then on March 13th, ideally the RFI will be due. We will let you know if this date changes at all or if dates get moved around, but the goal is for the RFI to be due before virtual site visits, so that we have all the information we need there. Also in March will be the field site visits, and obviously as soon as we confirm the dates, we will let you guys know what those dates are, but just looking out into likely early to mid-March for those site visits. And then again, phase 3 is really us making the report, so no key dates really for you all to be aware of there, but we would expect those deliverables to be sent out in early May or mid-May. Again, we'll let you know as dates change, but look out for that deliverable in May. And then here, I just like showing you all some sample deliverables because I feel like it helps show what we do. But oop, I heard an echo, but I think it's gone now. So that first chart is showing how your site ranks in our quality model. So earlier on the slide, I had that we're trying to balance quality, cost, and risk, and all those different data points that we analyze from site, utilities, logistics, talent, quality of life. We have a model that matches a lot of the site selection work we do. So what areas are being prioritized for this type of industry, and then we'll prioritize that information and make a model out of it. So for example, utilities for one type of project might be weighted more highly than workforce, and then we'll also show a labor intensive project where workforce is weighted a little more highly. So your site might perform differently based on what is being prioritized. But we will have several different models and show you how your site ranks on equality. In that second chart, we'll show how it ranks on cost. And then that third chart, we like to mix them together and show you how your site performs. So is it high quality but high cost, or is it low quality but low cost, so advantageous from a cost perspective, etc. And then we'll also just map out all of the information that we collected, as well as images from our GIS system, and create a site profile for you, summarizing all that information. And then the path forward slide is our recommendations for getting your site development ready. So what we would recommend investing in. And then Gray is our engineering partner, and they help map out a master plan. So you'll also get that as part of your deliverable. And then this slide is showing the site analysis summary, shows how much an improvement would cost versus how much benefit it would provide the site. So as an example, due diligence studies are relatively inexpensive when we're in the grand scheme of things, but they can lower risk and be very highly impactful for site selection projects, whereas building a new substation is very expensive and might benefit specific projects, but it kind of maps out the difference between the different costs of improvements versus the quality they might bring. And then we'll also show you, if you were to do all of those improvements, how much would that increase the quality of your site, and how would your site perform against other sites if everywhere did their improvements. And then we also, the Site Selectors Guild has a Ready Sites program, so kind of standardizing site readiness throughout the country. And we will also put the information on your site in their model and see if it's worth submitting to the Ready Sites program and where you might rank in that program. So if you're familiar with that program, we try to give you kind of what we estimate your score would be, and hopefully that helps determine if you'd be a good fit for submitting your site to that program. And then we already went through all these key dates, so nothing too much to go into here, but just to map it out, The biggest thing here will be I'll distribute the RFI right after this. The RFI will be due before virtual site visits and during field site visits, which will be in March, and we'll send you the specific dates as we get them. Shelby, do you have anything to add that I missed there before we jump into the Lasso platform and invites and things like that?
No, I would just reemphasize a couple points. One, our deliverables will be as robust as the information that is provided. So would really encourage to use this program as an excuse to kind of rally your partners and really dive deep into what you know about your sites. The whole point of this is to do it now versus when you have a project in hand or a bird in hand, as I like to call it. Because there's nothing major on the line, right? So if you do it now, you will have the answers once that project comes. So would really encourage the more impactful our recommendations and analysis and intentionality can be is based on what you know of your sites and what you can deliver from your point of view. So definitely encourage some real intentionality behind that. Um, as you're looking through the RFI process. We set that deadline. If you guys remember the last couple years, that deadline is a bit longer this year, so that we do want you to have as much time as possible to fill out that Lasso RFI, but we do really need to have those answers by the time we are conducting those virtual site visits so we can have a meaningful conversation with you all. And then we have to have those answers before we can, as Lindsay says, you guys disappear and we disappear and we go and do our analysis for about a month. So that is going to be kind of a hard and fast deadline this year versus in years past, we've let it we said 2 weeks and then have been pushing this mid-March is going to be best and final. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Shelby. And then up here, I just threw up a list really quickly of the sites that we're collecting and then the contacts provided. But the one thing I want to emphasize here is we highly recommend local economic developers be highly engaged during this process, since if we were to send out a site selection RFI, we would likely engage the economic developer. So just keeping them involved, one, so that they're aware of the site, and two, so they also get the training aspect of this. So they would be involved in the site visit, see what that site visit looks like, etc. When I send out the RFI, I mentioned this earlier, but I will shoot out an email to everyone that I invited. And if I invited the wrong person or anything, again, just let me know if you think another contact should be the one in Lasso. And we can obviously change that down the line. But again, this is the sites that we're tracking for now, but you will get an email tonight. And if you don't by tomorrow morning, just shoot Jackie or I a call or an email and we'll figure it out. All right, so we've touched on this a little bit, but the benefits of participating in this program is, one is the obvious one, developing your product. So getting that detailed site evaluation and improvement recommendations as it relates to site selection work. And then also just elevated awareness. So all of these sites go into our site database, and on the GLS side, we will be very aware of these sites as we continue with our site selection work. Two, experiencing the process. We emphasize this a lot, but this process will really show you RFI best practices. So what's important in an RFI, who should be engaged during the RFI process, and then site visit best practices similarly, who should be involved in the site visit, and then those stakeholders will be aware of the process because they'll hopefully be at these site visits and things like that. And then three, perfecting your pitch. So you'll be more aware of your site throughout this process. Hopefully you learn more about the utilities, logistics, etc., about your own site through this process and having to reach out for those answers. And then through our work, you'll get the value of your site defined, marketing collateral, and then again, site data on hand. So you'll always have the RFI and data collected from this process to reference later. And then what to expect. This relates to what Shelby just said, but treat this like a real project. We know and understand that it is very hard to prioritize non-project related work, but the more you put into this, the more you get out of the deliverables that we provide to you, and the more data you have on your site and things like that. So will really help in the long run. A lot of our site readiness partners that we work with save all the site information that they have and end up using it for later corporate projects, and that sets them up for success just having that data. So without even doing anything to the site or any of our improvements, you're already getting the benefit of having all of the site data and materials for you to use. As it relates to the RFI, which I will show you how to access the RFI here in a minute and then wrap up for questions. But for the RFI, start early so that you have time to bring in partners and partners have time to really understand the questions that they're asking. So when we send it out tonight, I recommend tomorrow just making sure that you can at least log into Lasso and see the RFI and make sure that you understand how it works. And then bring in your partners, invite them to answer specific questions, and then fill out the RFI as comprehensively as possible. You'll notice when you get into the RFI, which again, I'll show you, we have some questions that are marked as required to hopefully help guide you through what is the bare minimum you can answer, but then also just answering as many questions as possible so that you get the most out of this report. And then just being mindful of the deadline. So any questions that aren't answered before those virtual site visits, they get harder and harder to incorporate in our analysis, and you get the most out of the virtual site visit if those answers are in before then. And then be prepared to respond with follow-up information. So if you don't answer the question in the RFI, you will be asked it again. That's something that I like to emphasize. So if you don't fill out the RFI, the virtual site visit is going to be a lot of still being asked those questions. So you might as well answer it in the RFI and get those answers early on. For site visits, which again, we will email you when we have finalized dates, but begin coordinating early. So when we send you the dates, make sure you involve everyone early. We will send you site visit prep materials. So we will outline an agenda of the topics that we want to run through. And then a list of stakeholders that we recommend inviting to cover each of those sections. So we like to prepare you guys up for success. So hopefully it's not super scary or seem like a big rush to get done. But again, we'll outline that agenda and the stakeholders that we recommend bringing there. For the virtual site visit, and again, you will get an email with all this information, but we recommend preparing a presentation deck so that there's visuals and clear topics that we're about to talk about and things like this. Essentially, treat this as if a corporate decision maker is in the room. If there was a corporate decision maker, you'd probably have a PowerPoint, so bring the PowerPoint, and then you have the PowerPoint for later on too. So it's a win-win. And then for the in-person site visits, make sure that you are showing us the site. So that is to say, we recommend doing a drive-by or run-through of the site the day before to make sure that there's no obstacles, for example, a gate that won't open or something like that. Just running through that site the day before, the week before, to guarantee that there's that site access so that we can get the most out of the site visits. All right, so then lastly, I saved this for the end. I'm just gonna show you into Lasso, which again is our RFI platform that you'll be getting the invite for. Um, but I just like to run through to show you guys what that looks like. So when you get the invite, hopefully there isn't any surprises. So I'm gonna go ahead and share that screen. All right, so once you're in Lasso, I am in a participant view. So this is exactly what you guys are going to see. Once you get into Lasso and go to projects, you'll see the most recent invited project right up top. So New Mexico Round 2 Site Readiness Program, very obvious name. And then up here, I already pressed participate, so I don't see it, but there'll be a button up here that says, would you like to participate? And you press yes, and then this is what you see. The most confusing part of this to me is if you go to questions, which is where you think you'd be answering the questions, it does give you a disclaimer, so you will be able to see this later, but this is not where you fill out the questions. This is a read-only view of the RFI questions that you will need to answer. Once you get into the RFI, you will spend most of your time on this properties tab. So this is where you're submitting properties, not the questions tab. Again, there is a disclaimer on top of the questions tab, but this is the most confusing part of Lasso to me. So just make sure you're spending time in that properties tab, filling out information, not the questions tab. And then under details, we of course have the due date, everything like that, my contact information, so it'll never get lost. Don't hesitate to email or call me for questions, and I'm happy to get Lasso support involved if needed. But yeah, this details tab, you'll have access to all of that stuff. And then once you submit a property, this is what it looks like. So I went ahead and just added one before this call so that you didn't have to watch me add it. And then once I'm clicking into the property, you can see now I have the ability to answer questions, save them, all of that good stuff. So really simple once you get in it. I just like to point that out because most of the time I get questions very early on about why they can't submit it because they're on this questions tab. So just making sure you're going to that properties tab and submitting from there. And earlier I referenced there's a lot of these required questions. So these are kind of what I like to say the bare minimum questions to answer for us to really be able to do any sort of analysis. So I like using the electric section just as an example. You'll see there's a lot of these required questions, but then some not required questions. But these required questions are really what we need to put information into the model and give you guys an accurate and detailed deliverable. So really focusing on these red questions if you're able to answer them. And there is a tutorial guide on the details page of how to do this, but to Shelby's point and what I mentioned on the PowerPoint slide, get your providers involved. So if I were to go to the water page, your water provider should be able to fill this out and recommend involving them. And then you're able to directly get a contributor into the RFI. So basically like a shared Excel file, except more high tech in my opinion. But if you need help from a contributor, so I'm just using the water provider as an example, you could select the category that you would like them to fill out. So I'm going to select treated water supply and then just say that they're also providing wastewater, and then you can just send the questionnaire to them. So that would be how you invite a contributor, but there are a lot of functions in Lasso to really help you all. So in the beginning, it might seem confusing, but after that, you send it off to the water and wastewater provider and they can answer. So it's hopefully mitigates that back and forth between you and a bunch of partners and trying to get information all into the same place.
And Lindsay, I'll just add quickly here, if if during that, spiel that Lindsay was talking about, your first thought was there's no way my water or wastewater city or county group is going to be able to or be willing to answer these questions, that's the whole point of this program. So I really encourage you to engage your public utilities on this. And if they cannot answer these questions or think that they should not be answering these questions, these are the questions that if you have an actual project looking at your site, they are going to need these answers. They need to know the water capacity. They need to know where the lines are. They need to know the timelines to push in these lines. So this is how you start this conversation with your public utilities and your water and wastewater providers of, I need you to come to this table and I need you to be prepared to talk about this industrial site with me. Great time to do this in this kind of controlled environment. Make sure they're on these virtual site visits because they can hear it from me and Lindsay of how important it is to know these discussions. If they say, well, this isn't a real project, I need to know exact numbers they're looking for. The RFI outlines exact numbers. So we give estimates, is it 100 gallons, 150 gallons, whatever it is. We give 2 or 3 scenarios that they can run for you so that they do have something to kind of play with. And what that allows is the next time you do have a real project and not just me and Lindsay talking to you, you can go ahead and know in the back of your mind, this is a site that supports 50 gallons of water a day and 5 megawatts. Or maybe it's a site that doesn't, but you already know it's going to take 12 months for it to get there. So that's the whole point of this. So luckily, I think usually with utilities, water and wastewater is typically the most difficult to kind of get involved and on board. Most of your utility or your power providers are already on this call listening to this discussion, which is fantastic. So that should be a really easy phone call and making sure that you all are collaborating with those partners. And then gas as well. New Mexico Gas should probably already be on the line and have been a partner in the program for the last several years. So hopefully those are lower hanging fruit for you and able to make sure that you guys are collaborating that way. Off my soapbox. Thanks, Lindsay.
That's a great point. And I will open it up for questions now. I know that this webinar always is a lot of information and 40 minutes or whatnot, but I did see a question come through of, will you guys receive a copy of this webinar? And yes, I will both send it to Jackie, and then when I send you guys the email tonight saying that you got invited to the RFI, I will also attach a copy of it in there. So you guys will definitely have access to this in a PDF version. And then are there any other questions? Feel free to just unmute and you can go ahead and ask.
Eric, I see you're asking for the full list of sites again. That will be in the presentation that Lindsay sends later tonight, but we can also connect with you individually to make sure you know which sites are in your territory so that you can be ready to go. And we can resend you the list of the utility questions that we're going to be asking like we did last year. So y'all can get started.
Yeah, and Eric, I don't think there were any in the El Paso electric territory. Obviously, anyone feel free to chime in. But on our list, I do not believe there were.
Oh, Eric gets a break this round.
I know, right? He didn't have enough of us, I guess.
So my question is you were saying that like with the gas and the water and the electric, where we're at, our gas is propane. So we would have to have like the propane people on the call or on the virtual site.
So you don't have, so like New Mexico Gas is not a gas provider for the site. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Here in Santa Rosa, we're all propane.
I think if that's the case, and Shelby, obviously chime in if you disagree. I would say that in the RFI, I just mentioned that propane is the only solution, but I guess my question there would be, if this were a corporate project, would they be responsible for providing their own propane, or you have a provider that supplies the area?
We have, I believe there's 3 different providers.
Okay, I
and
think
that's what my question was gonna be. Do I
Yeah.
need to have all 3 providers on the call, or the main, or like Santa Rosa, I think that's the name of it. The main provider, the biggest propane provider around, just have him on the call.
That's a really good question, Rebecca. And I want to say one thing first for the whole group. That's a great point of, even if your site doesn't currently have power or gas or water to it, you need to engage the partners that would service that
Mhm.
site. So that is a
And
great
I do
point.
believe it is all set up with all of that. It's
Okay.
all, but I just want to,
So I would defer to you. My gut for you would be, if you had a project in hand, who would be that gas provider that you called? If it would be all 3 and they would bid out for it, you're welcome to have all 3 of them engaged in this. If you want to pick the biggest, you're welcome to. I assume they're all private, and it's, it's a
correct.
user's choice versus, mandated that it's, XYZ utility.
Mhm.
So I will 100% defer to you. We are comfortable either way. I would say for the RFI process, it would probably be a lot easier to just for you to collect one person's, and I would
Okay.
encourage just whichever one you think would be kind of the most ready to come to the table and have this information available. Because that's probably who you would engage anyways if it was a corporate client, right? So
Right. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you for asking that question, because that's a really great point.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Celicia Acosta. I'm with Spaceport America, and I had a question. We're currently on state land. We lease from the state land office, and we have about 18,000 acres. When we go to submit, of course, we have our prime real estate, right? But looking to expand. Are we able to, and none of it's subdivided. Would we enter selected areas? Do we put the whole 18,000 acres? How does that work?
Yeah, I would enter in the entire 18,000 acres. And then one of the questions in the RFI will ask if it's subdivisible or anything like that. So make sure you're answering that. But I definitely lean towards including all of the acreage. And then in our report, we do show what area might be the most developable and things like that. But I don't want to take out any acreage and then not include part of the land that might be beneficial to a project, just as an example. I think there's more benefit to including all of it.
Yeah, unless you guys have already kind of earmarked the top 1,000 is going to be for industrial, and I know this acreage is going to be for residential. Like, if you've already kind of outlined that, then definitely let us know and we can carve that out on our side. But if it's 18,000 acres of raw land and y'all are just getting started on, we want industrial somewhere, then submit all of it. And I see that you just said you lost connection. So let me know if you need us to repeat that, or we can also connect offline if you want us to kind of look at the acreage with you and determine what makes the most sense for submission before you get started.
I'll sum that up in the chat for her so that we make sure she sees it.
Hi there, it's Jackie. I wanted to ask Lisa Abeta if she had submitted on to Lasso, and is that what you were wondering, if it would port over to this round?
Yes, so I remember the platform from last year, and I didn't know the way your platform worked of whether, one, we would have access to see it, to be able to copy over what hasn't changed. And then if it's possible to actually port data if some of the sites haven't changed.
So I think, are you talking about the actual models? So
The RFI that
showing,
you did last year, unless this is a completely different group, I don't think it is,
Mm-mm.
that did
The
this for the
lasso
state
RFI.
last year.
Mhm.
Okay, so the last RFI, yeah, you should be able to recall answers if it's the same site. The only issue is if it's a different site with maybe some of the same answers, you probably are going to have to cross-reference and paste in, but you should still have access regardless to your responses from the previous year. So when you
Okay,
go to the projects tab, you'll see both projects. So Lasso does have the function of recalling answers for the same site, but if it's a different site, you'll probably have to cross-reference.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Are there any other questions? Again, we will provide a copy of this to you all, and then I will distribute the RFI tonight. It is 5 p.m. our time, so I will probably do this in a couple of hours, but I will invite you tonight and then let Jackie know that I've added everyone to the RFI and email everyone that I've invited to the RFI and just make sure that I'm inviting the right person. So look out for that. And if I don't see that you've accepted the Lasso invite or whatnot in the next couple of days, I'll also ping you and just make sure that you have access all right. So look out for my emails. We will keep you guys updated as well on the site visit and virtual site visit dates. As soon as we finalize them, I would hate to give you dates right now and then they change. So I will just hold off, but know that they will likely be in early to mid-March starting up, and you guys will get that soon. Isaac?
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay and Shelby and the GLS team. Isaac Romero, Deputy Cabinet Secretary for the Economic Development Department. Thanks everyone for being here. There's one thing I just wanted to highlight, and this is not going to apply to most everyone here, but really just to those who are private landowners who are submitting, is we did this for the prior rounds, and anybody that is a private landowner that submitted and got their site characterized, we're requiring a $1,000 submission fee for those. And the primary reason for that is to avoid any claims against the anti-donation clause of the New Mexico Constitution for donating these. These reports tend to be, and Lindsay and Shelby, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, they're about $20,000 per site, is my understanding, and they can range depending on the complexity and specific needs. So it's effectively a $1,000 requirement for a $20,000 value. And again, this only applies to the private partners as described by statute. We're happy to take any questions on that, but we'll answer those separately. So you can expect, again, I think there's only 4 or 5, Jackie, sites this round. That will have that requirement, and we'll send an invoice along with the following the RFI, and that'll be due the same timeline. Rebecca, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Isaac. Was that just a straight $1,000 fee, or is that a $1,000 fee per acre?
No, $1,000 flat fee.
Because I'm like, that's per
The,
acre, man. We're crazy.
the person
Okay.
with 18,000 acres is really
Uh,
reimagining
No
this.
Fortunately for
So-
Spaceport, they're administratively attached to EDD, so we'll help them out.
So it's
We
$1,000 fee,
appreciate that.
and then that invoice will come after the RFI, is after we submit the RFI or with the RFI?
It'll be a due along the same timeline as the RFI. So
Gotcha.
payment to be received by the same time the RFI is submitted.
So it's due at the same time. Is what I'm gonna
Yes.
put. Thank you so much.
And we'll reach out separately to those individual private landowners and answer any questions accordingly from there too. But thank you. We're excited for this next cycle. It's an exciting time, and we're starting to see some strong momentum in all of this program. Thanks for being a part of it. I mean, this program just effectively started in July, and we're seeing great growing momentum. So thank you.
All
I have a
right.
quick
Thank you,
question.
Leslie.
Can I just have a quick question?
Oh,
I may
yeah, of
have
course.
missed it. I may have missed it because I had to come on a little bit later, but is there a minimum size requirement on these sites?
No, there is not a minimum for this program.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I came on late. Can you relist the minimum or what the goals and objectives are this round? And is it different than the last round?
No, the goals are similar to previous years. So the RFI, for those of you that were maybe involved in previous years as well, the RFI is going to be very similar. Similar questions, no surprises there. And then deliverables again are going to be similar across sites.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I'll give everyone their 8 minutes back. But yeah, thank you all for joining today. We are very excited to kick off this round and look forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.